That's actually the unpleasant reality of the world we live in. But going back to the talk of accountability, how do we determine this in terms of environmental ethics? What framework do we use in justifying and weighing their roles in the climate crisis?
Okay, while my stand on this issue is clear by now, if we were to discuss this in terms of Kantian ethics, particularly the categorical imperatives, it says there that our moral obligations come from pure reason and should be void of anything to do with our desires. With that being said, as consumers, when using this particular framework, we can see that no one is exempt from the duty of environmental protection, even if our circumstances do not allow us to have any other choices but to continue using products from companies that cause harmful effects globally.
As for my stand, the principle of right-based ethics holds that because one is a human being, one is bound to certain privilege. These are inherent and customary rights established by the community in which the individual exists. Using this framework, we can say that based on the rights that we have created, that reflected on the values of society, our very human rights are being violated by these companies who abuse their power and resources. As all being depends on the environment in which we live in, hence the conversation of climate justice.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, Ms. Garcia. Besides, if we also look at it in the utilitarianism framework, it is clear that the ones who are most capable in making the big decisions for greater good, which in this case are the big companies, should do something about their emission without only considering profit for once. And yes, they must do something about it immediately, since climate change not only destroys the planet for now, but also threatens the future of humankind with consequences that may even be irreversible.
I agree with your point, Ms. Reyes, as climate scientist warns that human activity is altering Earth's climate in ways unusual in the hundreds of years, with some of the effects already unavoidable and irreversible. Any action to address climate change raises fundamental ethical concerns about equality and accountability across citizens, government, generations, and the rest of nature. Climate change has been called a true moral storm because it brings up three main ethical concerns in mutually supportive way. While it appears evident that we have important duties as a society not to inflict severe climate harms on future generations, establishing the more specific trajectory of emission scenarios necessitates deeper consideration of global, intergenerational, and environmental justice. People of the future and some endangered species would definitely benefit from significantly reducing emission occurring rapidly in order to limit future climatic harms. Everyone must take responsibility for protecting the environment because this is where we live in, and we are responsible for everything that happens here. This, unfortunately, may be costly for the present generation to providing only minor benefits to them, which may appear unjust.
Well said, Ms. Garcia. I would also like to add that in protecting the environment, it is not all about climate change itself. To truly think of the welfare of everyone, we must respond to it with environmental ethics in mind. Just like what UNESCO has stated, we should all recognize that we cannot overcome these challenges without the participation of everyone. By everyone, meaning every sector of society, including the most vulnerable. In building sustainable solutions, we must not leave anyone behind.
That's true. And speaking of not leaving anyone behind, capitalism is a problematic system in which only a small group of people own the means of creating and distributing commodities and services in the society. Private corporations are some of capitalism's most powerful players. Their work keeps the capitalist hamster wheel turning. Companies that mine, build infrastructure, or manufacturing steel typically have a significant environmental impact. This is due to the fact that they obtain their building resources by drilling to the soil. If they continue to exploit the ground without rehabilitating it, it may become unfit for other economic pursuits such as cultivation and agribusiness. This stops a country's capitalism from attaining its full potential, which is seen as a disadvantage by these big companies. As a result, when structuring their commercial activities, these organizations should include the expense of rehabilitation. They must also be checked to make sure that they actually do a land restoration after they finish utilizing a specific area. This will conserve land for agribusiness while doing and benefiting commerce and capitalism.
Absolutely. I think that the best we can do in dealing with the aggressively capitalistic nature of these companies is really through tireless persuasion and protests. Maybe it is about time that we recognize the power
And
that people
benefiting
have when
commerce
they
and
collectively
capitalism.
let their voices be heard. I believe that it is our job as part of these environmental organizations to continue the fight by emphasizing the importance of science, innovation, and knowledge in developing sustainable responses towards climate change.
Also, cooperation may go a long way towards fostering a capitalistic state's health. People who are independent, rational, and self-interest recognize that there are more advantages to cooperating than not cooperating. Individuals, enterprises, corporations, and political parties can all work together. Cooperation can be achieved by supporting ideals such as benevolence, empathy, unity, and solidarity. Government and financial organizations should likewise respect and preserve these ideals. This will protect the capitalist system and the economy's vitality. Capitalism is a socio-economic governance system that has withstood the test of time. Nations that have adopted it attain sustainable growth. It, likewise any other systems, can be modified at any time.
I love that point where you've mentioned that it can be modified. Same goes with the environmental movement back in the before the 1980s. Environmentalism challenged capitalism and large corporations instead of what was done in the early 21st century, where their energy was redirected to the poor people living in the third world countries. I hope that through our efforts of redirecting the bigger responsibility back to these capitalist companies, we can get the climate justice that developing countries are calling for. And again, you're right. The government should be a bridge in uniting both ends of the spectrum for us to see some significant changes.
Everything you have said is true, but wow, time sure does fly. I really enjoyed our talk today, Miss Reyes. It's always a pleasure to just sit down and have a conversation with a member of our organization. I always advocate for the environmental movement, but there is still much to know and realize every day. Then it hit me. Little things do like this do matter, and I hope that I can continue deliver this message to people who might not be aware of what we do.
Yes, we must always have this conversation, not just among ourselves, but also to different sectors in the society. This way, we can encourage everybody to take a stand, not just with their emotion, but also with ethics and morality in their mind. That way, we are sure that what we fight for lies for the greater good. Anyway, it was really nice talking to you, Miss Garcia. Hoping to see you on our next projects. Thank you.